Without a doubt, we live in difficult times. And it's in times like this that we need inspiration. We need God to speak to us and reaffirm the purpose of life, humanity, the purpose of our very life. Why are we alive now, and why should we get out of bed today? And the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon, the preacher, the son of David, gives us the meaning of life. Let's delve into it together. Chapter 7, verses 11 through 18 in the New American Standard Bible says this, quote, "Wisdom along with an inheritance is good, and an advantage to those who see the sun. For wisdom is protection, just as money is protection. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the lives of its possessors. Consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent? In the day of prosperity, be happy, but in the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man will not discover anything that will be after him. And I have seen everything during my lifetime of futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness. Do not be excessively righteous, and do not be overly wise. Why should you ruin yourself? Do not be excessively wicked, and do not be a fool. Why should you die before your time? It is good that you grasp one thing and also not let go of the other. For the one who fears God comes forth with both of them." Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 11 through 18. Wow. It's complicated. It makes my head hurt as it deals with righteousness, wickedness, wisdom, and folly. That's the whole package. Righteousness and wisdom are kindred terms, while wickedness and folly form a counter-kindred pairing. In this section, as in the whole book of Ecclesiastes, wisdom's limitations are highlighted. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 11 through 14, the text compares and contrasts wisdom and wealth. Wealth and wisdom provide a limited benefit and purpose, according to verses 11 and 12. But the text teaches us to consider everything in God's providence, verse 13, because adversity and prosperity both belong to God's sovereignty, according to verse 14, which builds on the previous paragraphs in chapter 7 that declare the mysteries of life too vast to judge good from bad, better from worse. While wisdom and wealth provide some limited protection from life's harshness, according to verses 10 through 12, their shadow and lack of substance proclaim their ultimate unreliability. Incomprehensible plan, God provides and ordains both good and bad times, both Abraham's prosperity and Job's adversity. And yet we are guilty of praising God during prosperity and quietly complaining during the adversity. We should be praising God regardless of our circumstances with a continual attitude of gratitude. Eats in the handbook on the wisdom books and Psalms on page 346 says this. Let me just quote him. "The problems of life, therefore, when considered within the plan of the infinite God, can serve the beneficial purpose of directing humans to faith in Him rather than continuing in the delusion of their supposed ability to comprehend life. What appears on the surface as adversity may in truth be a severe mercy of the sovereign God that leads to a more profound and substantial blessing. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 15 through 18. The paragraph teaches the wisdom of moderation and warnings against extremes. Moderation good, extremes bad. Because wisdom doesn't protect and wickedness doesn't immediately destroy, be moderate and avoid the extremes, because the good stays balanced between them. Quote, for the one who fears God comes forth with both, end quote. This section, an example of exceptions, destroys rigid moral determinism. When talking about righteousness, as in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 15, the context is pretentious, overconfident, legalistic righteousness, and not lovingly, obediently living godliness. The self-righteous, legalistic assumes security by doing the right and wise actions like a checklist of security. There are, quote, no privileged claims on life on the side of either wisdom or folly, of either justice or wickedness. Neither of them allows a person to be secure, end quote, says Murphy, page 20. Rather than finding imagined comfort and security in extremes, the preacher Solomon in Ecclesiastes teaches moderation. Moderation. It is good and right to practice wisdom. It is good and correct to live righteousness, but all in moderation. It's a mistake to find security in their extremes. The fear of God puts everything in perspective. It turns out life isn't about people. It's not about our understanding. Life is about the mortal's relationship with the Creator. We must live for God and find security in God. We must fight the temptation to define God by limiting him to a box, to our understanding. We must fight the weakness of categorizing life under the sun and recognize its futility and express gratitude and worship for the God who loves us and redeems us and infuses value into our existence. This topic is incredibly important, and we need time to think about the purpose of our individual lives. Why do I exist, and how can I make the most of the time that God has given me? If you're interested in delving into Ecclesiastes deeper, then I wrote a book in 2018. It's 50 pages. It's $1.98 on Amazon. It's for a Kindle, an e-reader, and it's called Search for Significance, an examination of Ecclesiastes. And I will put the link to this book on Amazon in the description below as an additional resource for you if you wish.